Hello and welcome to the Left Wing. Well, lads, we are here outside a coffee shop near the Ireland training ground. It's such a big week. How are our energy levels matching the week?
I'm impressed by the owner who's presented us with a ball as a prop. You know, it's very well prepared for Rugby World Cup. We're on the outskirts of Tour. Keane's been checking the cinema listings and the IMAX beside us. Anything good?
Well, I got excited when I saw Sinead had set us up near cinema. I thought we were actually going to be doing it while we were watching Oppenheimer or something. Yeah, Oppenheimer and Barbie. I've already seen both of them though. So
which do you prefer?
Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer was great. Barbie was decent, but Oppenheimer, was very good. But yeah, all business, I suppose.
Only one show in town this week, Keane.
That's why they pay you the big bucks.
Nothing like a press conference with James Ryan, Jemison Gibson Park and Simon Easterby in a rickety tent getting buffeted by the wind where you can't really hear what anyone's saying, and every time one of the photographers moved to take a photo you couldn't hear anything
noise
at all. It was just creaky. It's quite a setup over there.
Yeah, and James Ryan I think had the definition of his game face on already. I thought he was actually very good about, we'll be writing about this online tomorrow and in the paper, just about how he kind of readies himself mentally for what is an enormous test. It was interesting. James in Gibson Park ended up basically sitting in the crowd, so he was asked at the end of the press conference if Jameson had any questions for James Ryan. So he was lauding Johnny Sexton.
He was at the back of the press conference.
Yeah,
right.
So I think that put him off a little bit, as I think he was almost waiting for Gibson Park to ask him a question, and then the Ireland media manager asked him. It was all top ants, Sinead, but Gibson Park didn't go for the question. He might have put us to shame if he did.
He might have.
Yeah.
Rory, we spoke this morning on the video about the 7-1 split, of course, and you might have been the only person who saw this coming.
I wasn't the only person, but certainly when Rassie Erasmus showed his hand, was it 3-4 weeks ago, in Twickenham in that New Zealand win, the word I was getting was that this was a dry run for Ireland, and if they beat Scotland, then they come into this game under less pressure than Ireland because they have one foot in the quarter-final already. This was designed with Ireland in mind, that basically they're looking to break Ireland. And the more you look at it, the more you think about it, the more you look at the personnel that are involved, I think it's a breakdown play more than anything else. It's not just about power. It's that there are a lot of jackal threats on the pitch in the last quarter of this game. Everyone knows Ireland play with quick ball. It's what Jack Nienhammer said. When you read the quotes from last night's press conference, he talked about how Ireland play a fast game, and this is a strategy designed to slow Ireland down. Wear them out as well. Ireland have confirmed, Simon Easterby has just said, that they're not going to go any more than 5-3, that they're not going to break the habit of a lifetime. They haven't really considered it over the course of their time in charge. He's been involved with Ireland since 2013, if I'm right. He said it's come up, but it's never really been a viable runner. And they're right. Like, I argue they should go 6-2, but if that's what they believe in, they should stick to it. They shouldn't have their heads turned by what Erasmus and Nienhammer are doing, because a lot of it's smoke and mirrors. A lot of it's designed to get us talking about something else other than the fact that they've no recognisable goal kicker. There are weaknesses in the South Africa team, and Ireland aren't the world's #1 team. They shouldn't be bending for anyone else.
Yeah, okay. You debated this morning, didn't you, in the Irish Independent?
Yeah, but he's already rowing back though in his argument. Rudders.
Okay, hang there for a second, and we're just going to listen to what Simon Easterby had to say today. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay, go Cian. What were you going to say?
I'm just interested to hear Rudd has already softened up his approach when he was once again trying to debate.
He can change his mind. It's okay.
Mind, yeah.
Simon Easterby convinced me. Maybe you convinced me. And it's what they've always done. I do think there's an argument for it. I do think if they lose, they may regret not doing it. But they don't die wondering. They stay true to themselves.
Yeah.
So it's worked for them before. Why not again?
Easterby hit the nail on the head, I think, when he said this will be a real hindsight thing, in that if it doesn't work, if it works out well for the Boks, people will say, it was a great decision, and if it doesn't, it'll backfire. And I think that pretty much hit the nail on the head. But I was kind of steadfast in my view that Ireland shouldn't even. I understand the idea of considering it, because of course you want to prepare for all eventualities, but I think it's a mental thing as much as anything. And I think if Andy Farrell had changed, or if he does spring a surprise and changes, which it sounds like he won't, I think it's almost like a mini mental battle that the South Africans will have won. So,
every team has a particular strategy. It's and it's up to them to believe that strategy is the right thing for each game. And obviously they believe that is the way that they need to set themselves out to beat us on Saturday, just like we'll be planning the way that we want to beat South Africa. So listen, it's a talking point. I don't think it changes anything for us, to be honest, and it's something for you guys to have a little bit of discussion over. What will determine it at the end? It will just be hindsight will allow everyone to say it was the right or the wrong thing to do. And you know, like I say, it's their strategy, and it's not something that we can control.
But just because they haven't done something before doesn't mean they should do it.
No, but it's worked. I mean, having a 5-3 split in the bench, and this is the point I was making in the paper and online for the piece that myself and Rod, the debate that we had. Like Ireland's bench with, let's say, if the three backs are going to be Conor Murray, and it looks like Jack Rowley's going to be on the bench, and Robbie Henshaw. I mean, Robbie Henshaw would walk into most other teams.
Starting teams.
He could also play a back row at a push as well. Like he's built like a back row. Bundyaki did it last weekend. Like there's a bit of flexibility there. And the one thing the Boks have done as well, they've built towards this over the years. Like Quagga Smith, being a former Sevens international, can cover backline positions. They've been building their nines into flexible positions over the last couple of years as well. So there is a strategy behind it. They haven't just done this as a once-off.
Definitely. And like just because Ireland don't have a fancy name for their bench and they don't have tattoos of the bomb squad, that doesn't mean that Ireland don't have strengths in the bench. And this is my point. If Ireland had gone 6-2, I think they're almost lulled into taking the Boks on at their own game, and that is just not what you do. I mean, Ireland showed that back in November when they double down on the need for speed. You know, I know it's become almost a cliche, but it's so important to the way Ireland play. And if you have those three quality backs to call upon, as well as, you know, potentially Joe McCarthy, Ian Henderson, Dan Sheehan maybe, like that is a lot of firepower that Ireland can call on as well. So I think the debate and the discussion is brilliant, I have to say. We were asked in our jury on Monday, you know, about how many forwards would they go for South Africa, and I was thinking like it would be worth the kind of the outcry alone to see the reaction, because I think fair play to South Africa. I mean, they are pushing the boundaries, they're trying to be innovative, but that doesn't mean that everyone else has to follow suit. So I think it's a smart strategy by Ireland to go with what suited them rather than being lulled into trying taking the Boks on.
I'd say Ireland might be a bit more worried if they'd Hadrick Pollard on the bench, you know, rather than one of those forwards, because if things go wrong with Libbok, and things could very, very easily go wrong with Libbok, and then they go to Clerk and he's kicking, like there's the goalkickers.co.za put up a top 40 goal kickers at this tournament so far, and the Boks were all in the bottom 10, you know, whereas the Irish goal kickers are much higher up on that list. So the big risk right now for them is that they miss their kicks and they can't build that 3-6-9, and there's no lead for those bomb squad to defend. So they come on and they're trying to chase a game rather than come from behind rather than defend the lead, which is what they want to do. So it's risky, and we all go back to that Toulouse game. If they lose to even one back in the wrong position, it could throw them off. And even Rassie Rasmus said that the other day. If we put Quagga Smith in the back line, Johnny Sexton's going to start kicking the ball at him.
So if you to pick an Irish bomb squad, who would be in it? And give us a sexy name for them as well.
Oh, Jesus, don't put me in the spot like that. Maybe Cian could think of that while I'm... like he's discussed it already, at the even concept. He's too humble. Well, they can't go 7-1 without putting 4 front rows on it, because Jack Conan's not fit, and they've just confirmed that. So if Sheehan's fit, you put Sheehan there. You put Kilcoyne and Finlay Bealham. Hopefully he comes through his protocols. Then you're looking at Joe McCarthy, Ryan Baird and Ian Henderson, and there's a fair bit of ballast there. Put Baird at 6, the two lads into the second row. You've also got Ty Burns flexibility, which is one of the reasons they can go 5-3 comfortably, and put Henderson and McCarthy. I think that's what we're expecting, isn't it, Henderson McCarthy?
I think so.
I don't think Baird is going to make it. And I suppose you could put Rob Herring there. He did make his Ireland debut at 7 in 2014 against Argentina, and is a very mobile player. But I think in that scenario, you probably would be better off with a Jack Crowley who covers a couple of backline positions. I don't think, even if they wanted to, Ireland could muster 7 conceivably for this one. But 6, you could definitely make a case.
Just on that, and Jack Conan not being fit is the other major talking point, I think, out of today's press conference. And like, it's very, very interesting, because Simon Easterby basically said that he's kind of at where they expected him to be, which makes you think that they knew that Jack Conan wasn't going to be fit until, at the very best case scenario by the looks of it now, Scotland. That is a long time to carry an injured player. I mean, it showed.
We also don't know if Sheehan's going to make it, and if Sheehan's not going to make it, it puts it back into that time frame that was reported initially and denied by Ireland heavily.
They've been, I have to say, they've been a bit kind of loose with the reporting, and obviously we can only report what we're being told. And I'd say, like, some readers and listeners are going, geez, like, but this is what we've been told by the management. But I think, like, it's obviously a reflection of how highly they value Jack Conan. But if I was a Cian Prendergast or Gavin Coombs, but in particular Cian Prendergast, because he was obviously in the squad up to the last minute, like, you'd be pretty annoyed and frustrated. But I also think it shows that the Ireland coaches think there's a significant gap, because otherwise I think you would have a player who is able to contribite.
But they can also get by without him, because the back row and replacement that they're naming every week is of high quality, so they don't really need.
They don't have a backup eight, though, is the only thing. So you're asking Doris to play an awful amount. Because
he's come off in both games, and they put O'Mahony into that slot because they knew that they could do that against Romania and Tonga. There was a risk there, but I think Conan, the reward is going to have, because if they hadn't taken Conan, they would have Prendergast here for the next 2 weeks. And if Conan is fit, and obviously they've got good information that he will be fit, you're bringing in the Lions number 8 at a point in the tournament where you might need him, or you're looking for some fresh legs, and you can rest Conan then in that game. So I wouldn't argue with the strategy if it comes off. If Conan doesn't end up playing and ends up going home, then you're going, okay, well, you took too much of a gamble with him. And look, they've been lucky as well in the fact that no one else has gone down in that department. They've been remarkably lucky over the course of this World Cup cycle with the back rows that they have.
And is the point of difference there as well the fact that there is that down week before Scotland, so he has that extra week.
Turnaround.
Yeah.
And
that is
they
huge,
saw that more than anyone outside the camp did. They played that very well.
So obviously the Anti-Fry will name his squad, 23-player squad tomorrow. Are we all in agreement now? Because I know that you were thinking the back row could be different. Rory, what way are you looking now? Is he going to?
I think it's going to be the team that beat New Zealand, with Ronan Kelleher at 2.
So do we not think Dan Sheehan's going to make it?
If he makes it,
I think he'll be on the bench.
If that's a big if, I think at this stage. I think there's a lot to be said for Rob Herring having played 5 games and being game ready, and he's a very good scrummage,
very consistent as well,
He's very good in the loose. I know he's not the ball player Dan Sheehan is. Sheehan obviously gives you, if he is fit, he plays because he is such a remarkable player. He's not. I keep wanting to say athlete, but there's so much more to him than just his athletic gifts. But he does have incredible athleticism as well. He does things that neither Herring or Kelleher can do. But Kelleher was so good last week. Herring's been very good off the bench. If there's any doubt about Sheehan, and if he had, if he didn't train fully yesterday, maybe there's kind of a bit of. They're very positive on him, but I don't necessarily believe it. I think, look, if he's fit, he plays. But I would have no fear of Herring either. I think Ireland are really well stocked in that department. Yeah,
and this is stating the obvious, but the set piece battle is going to be so crucial. And I was watching back the November game yesterday, and my memory is so bad that it's actually hard to remember the kind of nuances of it. I mean, Robert Balakoon started that game, and now he's absolutely nowhere near the squad. So it's just funny how quickly things can change, because it's not that long ago. But worryingly, the line-out wasn't great in November. Now I know it was really good last week, and Kelleher started, but Dan Sheehan started obviously that game last November. The line-out struggled a little bit as well, so I'm kind of that is, I think, a slight area of concern, because you look at the Box line-out and it's there. They've just got big. They're throwing up. They're big men throwing up big men. So it's just a physical thing, and they've got good timing, and they're aggressive in the air as well. But you've got to, when you're thrown into a line-out, you've got Etzebeth, Mostert, and Peter Steph or the toy. I'm not sure. I always come back and forth on that one, but they went over the 15 a lot, but that obviously brings the defensive line up and limits what you can do on the outside. So there's so many. They're going to challenge Ireland in every way. It's just the ultimate game, because it's such a clash of styles, and that's why it's so. There's so many different layers we can go into this game, but the line-out is key for Ireland. The point on that is what I was going to make is it absolutely is. But if you do have a Rob Herring on the bench, and I think there will be a strong temptation, Rob Herring's strength is his set piece. Like we said, he's one of the best throwers around. So while he might not be the ball carrier that Ronan Kelleher and Dan Sheehan is, if you're bringing him on in the line-out struggling, I think that would help shore it up. So it's not a bad option. You've also got Dion Fury or Marco van Staden at hooker. So if there's scrums, I think South Africa will do everything they can to avoid scrums for once. And there's a chance to kind of break the seam between between the prop and the hooker, because for all that they're big men and they've got a little bit of experience, they're not if they were international hookers, they'd be playing there, so that's another weakness in that South African army that Ireland will look to exploit. Okay, well, I spoke to former Leinster and Ireland hooker Richardt Strauss from his home in George in South Africa this morning about this weekend's game. Have a listen. Richardt, thank you so much for joining us on The Left Wing. Can you describe what life has been like for you, first of all, since you retired from rugby, what was it, 5 years ago?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sinead. It is, just over 5 years ago. Life's been pretty good. Normal life is a bit harder than you thought it would be, but it's not too bad. I was lucky enough, I've moved down to George in the Western Cape, so it's a nice area. Got into the construction, and now we're just trying to go forward.
And did you miss the rugby after you retired?
Sinead, a lot of people ask me, and the simple answer is no. I don't miss it. I always felt the time I retired, I was ready to retire. I've had my turn. I've done it long enough, and the body took enough hammering for what it could take. So I was pretty happy when I retired. And yes, there's stuff you miss, but in a whole, it's not like I long to be back playing and all that.
Yeah. And what were the highlights of your time with Leinster, with Ireland? You made 3 appearances in the 2015 Rugby World Cup as well, of course.
Yeah, there's a lot of highlights, and you kind of think about it all the time. I think the one that obviously stands out that is pretty cliche is the 2011 Heineken Cup final, where we were down and out and kind of got back into that game. And then the other highlights is just what you learn and the people you meet and what you get to see around there and travel and experience you have with your teammates and friends and stuff like that. So that's stuff that I don't remember stories specifically, but whenever you're in a conversation with someone, it always comes up and comes back to you. And that's kind of what I cherish about the whole time I spent over there.
Oh. Obviously, huge game this weekend, defending World Cup champions against the #1 ranked team in the world. What is the view in South Africa of this Irish team, Richardt?
Yeah, everybody has a lot of respect for them and everybody's a bit nervous. I think they are confident that they would beat us. I think the same as we are. We are confident that we will beat them. But I think there's a lot of excitement about this game. The World Cup's built up. They had a reasonably big game against Scotland, where I didn't think any of the teams really played well. So this is for them. This is their first big game of the World Cup. And you can see it's the first game they're a bit nervous about. But there's actually a good vibe going around about the game, and everybody is chirping away and kind of calling me a traitor and having fun with me and all that. But no, so yeah, I think they're pretty nervous, everybody around. So there's a good atmosphere building just for this guy now.
Yeah, so is this a busy week for you then as well, with everyone getting onto you?
My business partner or my colleague he's just flown to France this morning, so I'm busy running around on the different sites. So I'm getting left alone quite a bit.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah, they're on to you there now already. And come here, obviously, South Africa named a 7-1 split on the bench when they named their squad yesterday or last night. What do you make of that decision? Is it the right decision, do you feel?
Look, it can go both ways. The same they did against the All Blacks there in Twickenham a while ago. If it works for them, they're going to be physically very challenging. But if they get an injury to some of their backs, then it can all go pear-shaped. I think that's a gamble they're obviously willing to take, and it worked for them once. Will it work for them now? I don't know. I wouldn't do it. Personally, I wouldn't do it. I just don't. The risk reward is not enough for me.
Yeah, so I mean, they did it obviously that time against the All Blacks in the World Cup warm-up game. Are you surprised then that they've decided to do it for this pool game?
Not really, no, because it worked for them, and I think the only way they beat us is they physically absolutely dominate us, which they did against the All Blacks in that test. They did get a red card and all that, but I think before that, I only watched about 20 minutes of that until they got the red card. They were absolutely physical over there completely. And I think that's what they're going to try from the first second of the game. It's just kind of come after us physically with everything they've got. And then if they're tired, they're going to bring up all those other big boys and try and do that.
Even more so than anything, is it almost like a psychological hit? And do South Africa like that? You know, they have their bomb squad name, you know, now this kind of 7-1 split. Do they like to portray this image of being all powerful, and is almost that half of it as well?
I think so. And look, it's worked for them in the past. So I don't think they're going to stop doing that. And they've been very successful with it. And I think they do like it. They always say no one can match us physically and all that. So let's see. I think if we play smart and not allow them to push us back into the corners and all that, then I think they're going to run out of gas at some stage.
Do you think do you think they could run out of gas?
Look, they definitely fit, but it's tough playing that, rushing up, putting people back. And if we don't allow them, if we turn them around quite a bit, then I think they're going to get tired. They're big, heavy boys. Coming forward and turning back and taking some collision takes a lot of gas out of you. So I'm sure with Johnny and the boys all there, they would realize that what they are going to do, and will definitely have a plan to counter that.
Yeah, and John Fogarty, you know John, of course, he mentioned that yesterday here in France, and he said, you know, their players are so fit. How do you think Ireland are naming their squad tomorrow? Do you think Ireland need to respond? And Ireland haven't traditionally gone 6-2. Do you think they need to respond to that and go 6-2, or do you think they need to back themselves and keep with the 5-3 on the bench?
Yeah, I'll go with a 5-3. I think they must stay with it. I think our boys are fit enough, strong enough to kind of handle it. And if we play smart, then there's no need to do that. It's going to be a physical game. There's going to be injuries. I mean, that's fact. And you don't want to kind of sit to where you have to play a back on the wing or centre or whatever. So I wouldn't do it. I would be surprised if they do, but let's wait and see.
And you mentioned Johnny Sexton there. I mean, you played with him. You know what he's like. Can you believe that he's playing in the kind of form he's been playing in the last few games? Excuse me, considering he's just back from injury and he's just back from that ban as well.
Yeah, no. Look, a lot of people talked about said Johnny would be undercooked. Talking to me about it and said, no, Ireland wouldn't be a factor. Johnny's undercooked and all that. And I said, I've played with a lot of people. There's only a handful of guys that can be out for 5 or 6 months and come back as if they never left. And Johnny, fortunately for us, is one of them. It's been incredible to see how his body's holding up with all the batting he's taking is unbelievable. So, yeah, it's good to see Johnny back. Hopefully now he can finish it off in a good way.
Were you surprised when Malcolm Marx, obviously huge blow to South Africa, was ruled out, and Andre Pollard came in then as well? And is the place kicking a worry in South Africa, and the vulnerability that's there as well, you know, with Amani Libbok?
Yeah, see, I obviously can't speak to what's going on in their camp. It's just the rumours or the chat between guys over here. Everybody is pretty nervous about the goal kicking, which is understandable. You don't want to go into one of the playoff games or a game like this without a guy that you know can deliver for you. But yeah, for me, I see the thinking behind it, but I think that's a massive gamble to go with the World Cup with one recognised hooker. Other two great players. I know Dion. I've played with him junior rugby and know him all the time. He always played hooker. But I think it's a bit different. The last couple of years he's played flank. He's been unbelievable. But I think switching him back into the front row is a big call in test match. And then they're trying Marco van Staden, I think, is that as well. Now, I've made that switch when I was 20, and it's not easy. To do that in the World Cup, I think, is a bit risky. And I think they just hope it doesn't come to that.
So in your opinion, are, you know, Jackie Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus almost taking too many? Are they taking too many risks going into this game?
I think so. Well, that's what my opinion would be. I wouldn't do it. Like I said, it's hard to kind of go against them because it's worked for them before. I think just they must just hope that something doesn't happen early on with, say, one of the hookers or maybe one or two backs, which can easily happen. We've seen it happen a lot of times. So, yeah, I wouldn't do it. But I'm not a coach, so let's wait and see.
And obviously the Ireland hookers, we'll see how, if Dan Sheehan is back. Obviously a Leinster player, Kelleher as well. Ronan Kelleher was back last weekend, had a fantastic weekend, fantastic game as well last weekend. You must be fairly impressed with how those two Leinster hookers have been going as well.
Yeah, actually all of them. If you look at Rob Herring as well, he's gone really well. It's incredible how Dan has come up real quick and has kind of taken his shot. I know Ronan was probably the man in charge and in the saddle, and then he got injured, and then Dan just took his chance. And I think it's going to be tough moving him from that now, to be fair to him. So it's been incredible to watch them. Everybody is talking about it as well. So yeah, I know they've done really well.
Yeah, and if there was an area of vulnerability on both sides that both sides will look to exploit, what do you feel that is in the South Africa game, the vulnerability, and what do you feel that vulnerability is in the Ireland game?
It's the same thing that goes both ways for me. I think if if you start South Africa physically, then it kind of seems like at times they run out of ideas, and then when it doesn't work, then they don't know what to do. And I think our vulnerability is if we get on the back foot, sometimes the same would happen. If we get uh, overpowered physically, then sometimes the ball doesn't start rolling, and then it's a kind of a double-edged sword where it's going to be incredibly important to see who fronts up physically.
Yeah, of course. So call it, Richardt. What way do you see it going?
It's going to be very close. I'm going to go 21-16 Ireland.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a good one. And will you be watching? Where will you be watching it?
I'm actually flying up to Bloemfontein. There's a school that has a fundraiser, and they asked me to go. They've got Rohan Pienaar and Frans Steyn there, and just to mix it up, they called me to see if I can go as well. So that would be pretty interesting. But in about 200 Afrikaner South African supporters, and me sitting there. So we'll see how that goes. I'll be vocal if I can and try and stir enough feathers, but we'll see what happens.
Great. Richardt, thank you so much for joining us.
Perfect, no problem. Good luck and enjoy the World Cup.
So we're on the move again, lads, tomorrow. We're heading to Paris in the morning.
And then we're leaving Paris again to go to the team base, because all the team bases are miles away.
It's like an hour and a bit away from which train station again? I know I checked this out.
We're into Montparnasse, and then we've got to find our way across Paris too. I haven't even looked at where it is, but the team are based. All the teams are based miles outside Paris,
the city,
and they're all really upset about it. And it's going to be the same through the knockouts for as long as the teams are here. They've in 2007, all the teams were based in Paris, and it was great for them because they had things to do outside of it. But I think they're all on golf courses miles out this time, and they're all pretty annoyed. They're going to be sad to leave tour, so it is a factor. But yeah, it'll be a long day of travel tomorrow. It'll be worth it to find out whether Andy Farrell has been pulling the wool over our eyes all week, and there's actually 7-1 split in the Irish bench.
Yeah, we'll wait to see what team and bench he announces tomorrow. We will be back with another Left Wing podcast tomorrow afternoon, so keep an eye out for that. Thanks for listening.